What's up, YouTube? It's Cloud9 Nerd bringing you my next Yu-Gi-Oh video. Now, in this video, I want to discard a card that I do not have, and that is Pot of Desires. I do have these two pots, and I know they don't exactly compare apples to apples, but I'm going to be making a few comparisons and talking about it. Now, I have been neglecting my locals, but not enough to know that Pot of Desires is still being widely debated, I guess, whether it's a good card or not. And I just want to throw in my 2 cents. Give you guys what I'm thinking, what goes through my head when I want to put certain spell cards into my deck. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, what I'm going to start with right away is Pot of Duality. When this card first came out, in the time that it did, you know, special summoning was rampant, yeah, sure. But this card gave a lot of slow decks the chance to compete. And its one and only restriction, besides, you know, once per turn, was that you could not special summon. Now, with certain decks, they had the power to, or they had the cards necessary to circumvent this restriction. But can you guys imagine how good this card would have been if it did not have that clause? You can excavate 3, pick 1, reshuffle, or you could still special summon. This card, I guarantee you, would be a staple today if it did not have that special summon restriction. So, you know, that's just one of the things. You don't play this card in decks that want to special summon a lot. And nowadays, with today's meta and pendulums, every deck wants to special summon. Every deck can put up a big board turn 1. So that's the biggest reason why this card isn't being played, is not being debated. Nobody's considering this a staple in many decks, and that's exactly why. So let's get into the next pot right here, Pot of Riches. This card, a few people talked about it, but nobody really wanted to play it. Nobody really wanted to pick it up, and I can understand why, because it did something similar to Pot of Duality. While it didn't completely say you cannot special summon, it did say the only special summon you could do was pendulum summon. Now that's a big no-no, because what do you do a lot of times when you pendulum summon big boards? You exceed, you synchro, you do something with your big boards. And having that restriction of only pendulum summoning means that, you know, you can activate it, you can get your +1 or whatever, and like put up a board, but then that's it. And a lot of times, the pendulum monsters that you're going to be playing aren't going to be big enough to hold their own. I understand that there are some good pendulum monsters that will probably survive the turn, but like, is it really going to be worth it in the end? And then the other thing is that it can remove your materials, your resources. Because I believe, let me see, from your graveyard or face up from your extra deck. Nobody wants to put pendulum cards from their extra deck back into their deck. You just took away resources. Sometimes you do get pendulums in the grave because you detach from exceed materials or whatever, but that's very, you know, 9 times out of 10, that exceed is probably doing something to help you win the duel. So you're not going to need extra resources after that point, you know? So that's Pot of Riches. That's Pot of Duality. And now let's talk about Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires is very unique. The only restriction it has is that it can only be used once per turn. That's it. If you want to consider banishing the top 10 cards from your deck or whatever it is, a drawback, great. That's nice and dandy. That's all up to you. But no, that card is amazing. It's just an instant +1. And it does something that a lot of people don't consider, which is remove 2 cards from your deck. This card only removes 1 card from your deck. It makes your deck 1 card thinner. And I know you're going to say, oh, Pot of Desires removes 12 because you banish 10. No, those 10 cards, if you're not playing that Necroface banished deck, it's not part of your deck anymore. You can't even consider those 10 cards. So you might want to consider deck thinning, I guess, but not really, because you've taken away resources, and that's not the same as deck thinning. So this card is going to deck thin you 1. This card is actually not going to deck thin you anything, because you put 3 things back into your deck and draw 2. So it actually makes your deck fatter. You might draw into something that you don't want to draw. Now, getting into Pot of Desires and my deck, I am not playing it, and the simple reason is this card right here, Painful Decision. This is what I'm playing, because if you guys read it, what you do is you take a level 4 or lower normal, send it to the grave, and then add that same card with the same name. Now, does that sound familiar? I think it should, because this does a similar thing that Pot of Desires does, which is take 2 cards out of my deck. That's deck thinning. However, in my eyes, it doesn't have the drawback of banishing the top 10 cards. Now, in a deck like Yang Zing Metal Foes, the deck that I'm playing, I have to ask myself, this deck is about bringing out your best turn 1 hand. And I think that's what you need to ask yourself. Turn 1, are you going to want this, or are you going to want a Pot of Desires? Now, if I have Pot of Desires and I don't open up the full combo, what is it, a Metal Foes and a few Yang Zing cards to pitch the Jiaitao, what is Desires going to do? I activate it. I might banish one of my secrets, maybe 2 of my secrets. I might make my first turn combo almost unplayable. I might not be able to get those two Baxias. Whereas this card, it's going to search out another Metal Foes. I know it's not another Yang Zing, but it will help me complete my scales. It will help me do something on the board. It means that I can get to the 3rd Metal Foes, maybe a Vault Flame, maybe put up an extra level 8 off that. I could do a Boxy, I could do a level 8. I could go into Titanic, I could go into something else. I could do other synchro plays. I could go into Void Ogre. In my opinion, it gives you more options. However, going first or any point after that, there is no doubt in my mind that Pot of Desires is the better card. If you open up the full combo and Pot of Desires, that's busted. That's what you need. Or if you draw it off of your fusion card, or you draw it 1 or 2 turns later, you're golden. You're set. You're plusing as hard as you can, and unless your opponent is gonna easily break your board, you basically won the game. So that's where Pot of Desires does shine. It shines after turn 1, at least for Metal Foes, Yang Zings, and other decks like it. Most decks who are gonna play, several copies of the staples that are not gonna exactly fail if they banish a few cards. Those decks, I recommend you play it no matter what. It's in my opinion, it's too good of a card not to be running in almost everything. It's just decks like mine where your first turn combo is extra important to running your deck. Those are the only situations, and that's the only reason why I have Painful Decisions instead of Pot of Desires. Because even at the price, if it was worth running it, you better believe I'll be running 3 copies of it. So I want to maximize what I can do turn 1, make sure that I can get to the full combo as early as possible. Pot of Desires could get me there, but it could also banish a lot of stuff that I desperately need. It could banish, like I said, my secrets or some Jiaitaos or certain. What if you banish both of your Divine Strikes or your 9 Paths or whatever? What are you gonna do then? You can search for Yang Zing Path, sure, but that's one to get you don't have anymore. So just some things to think about, guys. Overall, I do think Pot of Desires is one of the best cards that's come out in a long time, regardless of what deck you're playing it. But I'm just giving you guys the reasons why I'm not going to be playing it in Yang Zings. This is probably the most insight you're going to get into my deck profile until after the nearest event. I believe is in September or October or something like that. So I will be putting up more videos, but I'm not going to be doing a deck profile. So stay tuned for more videos, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.